Well, good day, ladies and gentlemen. Good day to you. It is Thursday, the 24th of July, and 11:02 a.m. I'm getting up a lot earlier now. Um, yeah, and usually around 6:45, which is I used to be a night owl, but I don't know. I'm just changing somehow. Been a couple days since I did a podcast, so I figured I may as well do one. And I got something to say today, so let me just get a coffee. There we go. So, yeah, um, where to begin today? Bob's gone back home to the United States. Um, I guess he figures that's a better place for him. So we had a nice, like, 3.5 weeks together up here. And I'm going to go ahead and build the new house and keep a guest house here for tourists and friends who want to come and spend a month or two in Costa Rica and just live up here. Um, so yeah, it's a new day, and I'm I guess you could say pretty happy. I guess everything is going pretty well. Um, I'm grateful, anyways, for everything. Um, Today, I want to talk about a number of things. And I want to revisit the idea of agency because this is a very important concept that I've brought out on the Talamanca Review. Other people have spoken about it, but not really with the eloquence and the simplicity and the directness with which I speak about things. And all modesty aside, I have a gift with language and I have a gift with communication. And if I put my mind to explaining something to people, you're going to get generally a better description than anyone else can give you. Barring theoretical physics and things like this, which are, I suppose, though, even if I were to come to understand those things, I suspect I do in some measure in ways other than mathematically, because there's only one reality. And it doesn't matter whether you engage it as a contemplative or you engage it as a mathematician or a physicist. You're still engaging the one reality. So agency is the idea that nothing can happen here without complicit human beings. And when I spoke about it in the previous podcast, I gave the example of the movie Sicario, in which they bring the FBI agent into a CIA operation, so the CIA assassins have the legal authority to operate on American soil. It's an example of following the letter of the law but violating the spirit, which is, I'd say, what everything is now. We have all this law, but nobody really believes it anymore and just thinks of ways to game it, right? You've got politicians looking to game the Constitution, game the law. That's an interesting topic. I could spin off in that direction for quite some time. Yeah, so a little bit of a sneezing fit there. I'm still getting over the last little remnants of this, whatever it was. I don't know what it was, but I had it the whole time Bob was here. And he did as well. Just a very heavy and kind of a oppressive congestion. Yeah, so everybody's pretty happy. I'm just going to build, I think, a 2-bedroom block bungalow, about 7 meters by 10 meters. And, yeah, but it's a cool project. Another thing I'm going to get into up here is I'm going to build a couple little sitting bathing areas where I can heat the water up with a copper pipe, and I'm gonna cement those up in stone, and that'll be fun to build too. Everything is fun to build. So my brother-in-law is finally happy. He's going to be able to pay me back the money he owes me as a result of bailing him out of going to jail. What was it, 5 months ago when I was going to see Jim and Yoshi in Panama. And Jim, if you're watching this, I might be coming to see you in, I'd say about 5 weeks. It all depends on whether my birth certificate and my background check get to Costa Rica in time, and I get an appointment with immigration right away, which is all kind of iffy, right? So we'll see. But I might have to make another visa run, which is every 6 months. But this will be the last one. I'm getting my residency in Costa Rica, residency by marriage, which will open me up to the market here. I can work legally, and so sometimes people ask me off air, how I know certain things, how I figure certain things out. Well, I mean, the sort of what geopolitical stuff, a lot of it comes from where I live. Okay. So as I watch my Western world, the culture of my origin, disintegrate, and deliberately so. I mean, I don't think anybody can make any claim that this is not deliberate now. It's just gotten worse in Canada since Mark Carney came in. Donald Trump is moving the technocratic agenda forward. They're all on one team now. It's basically, we're going into the world of the dark magicians. Okay, we're going into the dark crystal, if you want to reference that TV show. And I don't know how long we'll be in there. I don't think very long, but I don't think anything can stop it now. Now, they have to collapse the West because the West is the hospice of the true notion of individual freedom. And it's always been this way. It's not a political convention. It's not something that we invented in the last 300 years. The idea of freedom has, I'd say the root of the idea of social freedom and human freedom, the very root of it is the Celtic people, the Irish, the Scottish, and the Welsh. Okay? And to understand what I'm saying, you'd have to study their history, and then you'd understand it, okay? But this idea of personal freedom and having your own experience on this planet with, minimal interaction with governmental forces really came out of the West. And they don't want to honor it anymore, quite simply. The technocratic society cannot honor this. And so rather than deal with the ongoing resistance which would come about in the Western consciousness, or portions of it anyways, because a lot of the Western consciousness is really kind of folded up now as well. It's sort of given in and not really putting up what I would call any kind of significant resistance. So that's a bit high now. Okay, yeah, there we go. So they got to collapse the West, and I know it's deliberate because, well, first of all, you can see it if you're honest with yourself, and secondly, when you live outside of it, it's very clear. Okay, so my view on what's happening in North America and Western Europe now would be similar to a North American's view on what's happening in Central America in the 80s. Okay? Whereas if you're living in Central America, if you were living in El Salvador, if you were living in Nicaragua, if you were living in Honduras, where the United States effected all of these coups, and this was all part of the same agenda, by the way. It was all leading us up to this technocratic global society, which will, by the way, will be run from Jerusalem if they get their way. Okay? And one of the reasons I know it's all manufactured is the economy I'm living in now is booming. Okay? I mean, I get more job offers from Costa Rica than I do from anywhere else. And they're all coming from San Jose and Cartago, where there's a big tech center. And I have the ability to go and work there. And the wages are pretty good. I could make anywhere from 60 to 80,000 US a year here in Costa Rica now. And when you think about how much it costs to live here, that would be the equivalent of 300,000 or 400,000 in the United States or Canada. I'm not joking. Okay? So I think I'm going to do it. I'm building up the tourism business to be taken over by my son and any help or partners he wants to bring in. And so I will probably end up working in San Jose, which doesn't mean I have to be there because they got remote work here as well. I might have to be in 1 or 2 days a week. I'm getting way ahead of myself, though. I don't even have my residency, but I know what's going to happen. I can see it already just based on the number of job offers I've have, and then I've interviewed for a number of them and gotten the jobs, and then when they find out that I don't have my residency here, they can't offer the job. Now, why would I go through the interview? Well, because I have workarounds. They can hire me as an independent contractor and pay a corporation in Canada, and I can physically be here, but legally, it's the law is a very funny thing. It's extremely flexible if you know how to manipulate it, which all of these people do, like Trump and those people. But now I'm officially getting my residence and everything. So there you go. And I'm building this house now, and everything is going pretty good. So look, nothing can happen here without human agency. So whatever intelligence is operating on this planet, it is not operating independent of human cooperation. Just like the CIA needed the agency of the FBI in the movie Sicario, the interdimensionals and extraterrestrials, which are working here, they need the agency of human beings. And that's why they communicate through agency all the time. That explains the prophets to you. That explains Billy Meyer and all the UFO contactees. And it certainly explains the secret societies and the consciousness that is permeating through these organizations, whether they be Kabbalistic, Masonic, Rosicrucian, Martinist, or what have you. They've all been satellites of the one agenda, and what they're doing is they're bringing a consciousness through. They're the human beings who go into those secret societies, consciously or unconsciously, become the agent or act as a form of agency for a non-human intelligence. And that non-human intelligence is running this planet now, and it has been for several centuries, quietly building up to this moment. Okay? Brilliantly documented in The Light of Darkness, okay? So, if you understand what I just said about agency, then what you understand by deduction is that the ultimate enemy of man is other men. The ultimate enemy of humanity is other human beings. You can't blame anything that's going on here on any external force. Okay? It has to do with weak-minded human beings who get into relationship with these external forces. And anybody you bump into, and I mean anybody you bump into who is psychically lit up, is working with external entities. They're working with invisible entities. Okay? They're breaking spiritual law. They're practicing necromancy. They're breaking spiritual law. Now, you could make the case that I broke spiritual law when I communicated with my father after he had passed. But like all law, there are exceptions, right? And what happened between my father and I was a kind of, let's call it a diplomatic immunity or an exception to the law. But if you've been following the Talamanca Review, you'll know that I've had all these extraordinary experiences, like my ex-girlfriend's dead stepbrother at the ghost story at the cottage, but I can't repeat them. Okay, so that they happen in a spiritual context for my personal growth. And they give me an absolute experience that's irrefutable. But I can't repeat them. Just because I met one deceased human being in 1986 or 87, I think I was 21, so it would have been 87, doesn't mean that I can communicate with dead human beings. That one just happened, okay? And the thing with my father just happened. What I'm talking about in terms of the breaching of spiritual law is the habitual utility of these entities, basically becoming addicted to them. And this is what happens to these psychics and clairvoyants and super soldiers and MK Ultra people. Yeah, they can get up on a pedestal and say these horrible things were done to me. All these things were done to me when I was a child. But if you've known any of them, very few of them get clean. And the reason they don't get clean is they're addicted to the cities, the psychic powers, the mental powers that have evolved as a result of the programs they were put through. And these programs massively accelerated after World War II. I mean, they existed in smaller scale. I imagine in Jewish society, enhancement of psychic ability through childhood sexual abuse. I'm not even sure they would call it an abuse. I don't want to be pejorative in my use of that, calling it abuse, because it's not fair to how they perceive it. Hang on. Pejorative definition. Expressing contempt or disapproval. Yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to say. So, but that's what's going on with these people. And as long as they keep these doorways open, they're basically these human portals. And they wreak havoc everywhere they go. Okay, this was the case with my friend John Z, and he's still my friend. I don't judge people. But he's a human portal. And so just like what they're trying to do with CERN, what they try to do in the magical rituals, okay, they do with individual human beings in these programs. Those human beings become portals because they are no longer sovereign in their body and sovereign in their consciousness. And the encroachment of this artificial consciousness masquerading as spiritual is epidemic now. This is why I keep talking about it on the Talamanca Review. So they're going to try and use these people, these Akashic record readers and these psychics and these people who can talk to the dead. They're going to try to set them up as the new spiritual leaders in our society. They're already doing it with networks like Gaia. But it isn't spiritual because these systems destroy the heart. And if the heart is destroyed, you cannot call what you're doing spiritual. It's just that simple. I had to go blow my nose there. It's like allergy season up here or something. I don't have the cold so much anymore, but and another chief characteristic of these people and the fractured heart is you'll see in all of these people like Kissinger, Madeleine Albright, and it's very much a part of the Jewish consciousness now. It's the means justify the end. Okay, so the classic questioning of Madeleine Albright, who was Secretary of Defense, asking her on 60 Minutes if the death of 500,000 Iraqi children as a result of the embargo from 92 to 2002, because medicine was on the embargo as well, if it was justified, she said yes. And the moment you see that thinking, that contempt for the little people, you know you're dealing with this malignant meta-consciousness that is derived from magical practice or mind control or sex magic or any number of things. Or they've just been socially conditioned by people steeped in that. But given that Madeleine Albright was Jewish, I think it came from her culture. And given that sexual abuse of infants is the core of this kind of conditioning, we can fairly well assume that certain bloodlines within the Jewish culture have been doing it for centuries. Okay? And I'm not trying to be anti-Semitic. I mean, we had the example of Dr. Levin, Jewish gentleman in Toronto who wrote the new sex ed curriculum for Kathleen Wynne, a radical lesbian premier of Ontario for a number of years. And it was just the public outlet. The only thing it did that was positive was it unified a bunch of people, like Muslims and Sikhs and Christians and religiously conservative people. I mean, they were teaching sodomy in grade 1. Okay? I don't know what it is with all these sex freaks, and lesbians and gay people. They're not normal people, okay? And I'm not trying to be a caveman here, a knuckle dragger, or anything like that. But generally, when you're around these people, they're like another kind of human species. They think differently, okay? And the reason this is because of the way they use the lower three chakras, which are the stomach, the genitals, and the anus. Okay? If you get whenever you see any of these magical types of consciousness, these highly psychic people and stuff, you'll find they have imbalances in the lower three chakras. They all do. It's inescapable. It's a sure sign of who and what you're dealing with. Okay? So, to sum up on this first leg of the podcast, the enemy of man is in fact other human beings, people who don't guard their sovereignty and don't maintain their relationship with the divine. Okay? Now, you ask yourself, how could there be such diversity in the human species? And it's interesting when you think of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Okay, in the lens I'm characterizing now, they're trying to bring in they want to bring in all of this stuff. They want to normalize it. You see, and it's not per se that they're consciously evil. They actually, at their stage of development, they actually believe this would be beneficial for the human race. Okay, they believe it. They actually believe it. So I'm not accusing them of being hypocritical. The diversity in the human race is the result of what we open ourselves up to. Okay? That's it completely. So in many ways, the human life in this human body is a diplomatic mission in which we live in the body while we're alive. And throughout our life, we commiserate with various embassies of direction. Okay, various diplomatic relations. Now, this could be ancestors helping you in the incarnation. It could be other beings helping you in the incarnation, because there's a lot that goes into a human incarnation, believe it or not. There's a tremendous amount that goes into a human incarnation. Not every incarnation per se, but as you get more evolved in your journey, you will not come in alone. And you will think it's your intuition. Basically, human beings are basically like radio receivers. You'd be amazed how much of what goes on inside of us is not us. This is why they talk about self-realization being an absolute stillness. The mind quiets, and you realize what you are. And then what they don't talk about in the scriptures is what all the other stuff is you're experiencing until you have this realization of self. And 99% of it is external to you, masquerading as your own thoughts and feelings. This is the way the world works. Okay? Now, the people who go into the malignant consciousness schools, the magic, the psychic work, the necromancy, all of these sorts of things, and they're everywhere. They're in finance. A lot of the billionaires probably have this ability, or someone around them does, right? And it's malignant and it's spiritually incorrect. And it is being cleaned up now, but, right? So these embassies or these diplomatic relations we have in a human life are always non-physical. Okay, so this is, you can call it your spirit guides, whatever, but it's just non-physical beings and entities that have been assigned to you. Or if you break the original contract of your life and you go really negative, what then happens is you draw a lot of negative beings and entities into your life, and they'll trip you everywhere you go. You will not be able to walk 100 meters down the road without being tripped. Okay? And the secret for so many people who are living in this kind of living horror is to let go of the powers. But they're addicted to them. These powers are like crack. Okay? Just imagine you've been going your whole life being able to read people, read their thoughts, see part of their soul record. And how are you going to let that go? How are you going to go back to living like a normal human being and trusting God? It's very difficult. Very, very difficult. Nearly impossible, I would say. But I will not answer until a few more years, okay? Nearly impossible. So these embassies or these diplomatic relations we have while we're incarnate, they can be benign or malignant. They can be very helpful or very destructive, and it all depends on us, okay? Now, I generally do not work with entities or beings. They come and they go. They're around me when I'm writing books. But you want to get yourself to a certain frequency where nothing can really come into your space that doesn't belong there. Okay? Nothing can really come into your space that doesn't belong there. So this entire journey represents a migration of sorts. So the body is the migratory tool for the soul to realize itself and for the spirit to vacate incarnation. I mean, finish your life, do what you need to do, finish your responsibilities, but the overall goal is for us to vacate this incarnational process. This is not an eternal process, incarnating. Okay? It's a temporal process, and you will get to a point, an evolutionary point, where you don't need incarnation anymore. Okay? So, now what's going on now is multifaceted, okay? I'll try to get my head around this. So, number one, you've got the technology. You've got the augmenting of the human body. You've got the augmenting of the human mind. And this is all being done by frequencies, and these frequencies are externally generated physically. Okay? We don't know. There's been no scientific study that has been made public. I'm sure they've done it in private, and I'm sure they know what they're doing. But there's been no study to tell us what all of this is doing. All of the electromagnetic waves that are being produced by our technology. Because everything on this physical dimension is electromagnetic. A plant has an electromagnetic signature. A rock has an electromagnetic signature. A human being has an electromagnetic signature. A jaguar in my jungle here has an electromagnetic signature. And never in the history of man that we know about, they may have had it in Atlantis, all right? And if you want to go to Tartaria, I think they were using natural electrical currents, the natural electromagnetism already in space and harnessing it, okay? But we've never seen anything like this before, and nobody really knows what it's doing to us. I suppose there's opinions, a lot of ideas about it. I mean, you can find them everywhere now and all over the place, really. But it's all externally generated, which is why I recommend trying to live in a natural environment. Now, that might sound a bit hypocritical from a guy who's got 2 5G Starlink setups at his house, okay? But I do need this technology to make a living. And it's really the only electromagnetic signature here is my electromagnetic signature. Nobody else has it. Well, actually, a couple of my neighbors do have internet now. Imagine that, getting internet in 2025, where the average North American's had it since 1997, right? Almost 30 years. It's mind-boggling when you think about it. And so, as we find ourselves nearly besieged and surrounded now, and we are besieged and surrounded, make no mistake about it. And this is not a normal siege. A normal siege would be an integral city-state in which the walls are surrounded by enemy hostiles, looking to breach those walls with stone and fire. This is the old siege. The new siege is inside of us, and it's a consciousness siege. And they want to lock it in with technology, and they're building off of the financial system. This is the plan right from 1694. Okay? And it was a plan given to these human beings by agents which are not human. It is, if you will, a kind of contract with dark forces, in which the dark forces gain something and the human confederates gain something. And throughout all of it, we have to remind ourselves that the great prize in all of this is us. It's not gold, it's not palaces, it's not yachts, it's not private jets, it's not going to space or sending your woman to space like Jeff Bezos. We are the prize. Because in this construct we live in, materialism is really just something that human beings practice. Everything else is operating in a different way. Everything else is looking for something different. The reward for these other beings is energetic, and it has to do with us. Now, I don't think they're going to succeed, and here's why it's all going to fail. This control system that they're bringing in, the centralized central bank digital currency and programmable money, and I mean, if you want to know what the plan is, just follow Mark Carney closely, because he is probably the most visible agent of the plan now in terms of moving a nation state forward. And that nation state is the one of my birth. It's Canada. It's a bit disheartening for me, but this is the world we live in. The world itself continues. The wind is the same. The rivers are the same. The trees are the same. The animals are the same. The stars are the same. It's the same world. All that's really changing is the man-made construction within the world. And that's not a really big thing when you think about it, because everything just keeps going. And if you're grounded in life and you're grounded in a place and you're connected to land, it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Now, to understand the world in which we live, we need a more refined definition of evil. And this is extremely important. Now, anything a human being does in the pursuit of understanding reality cannot be perceived as evil. And I mean anything. Okay? This environment, this hologram, this matrix we live in was created by a creator and is managed by agents of that creator in various frequencies and dimensions so that the whole functions and operates, and the entire thing is an experience generator. We literally generate our own experience. We co-create our own experience. That's the power of our consciousness down here. We're literally co-creating our own lives. It's not all written before we get here. Some of it is. But the free will principle leaves things open that are going to advance you or halt you in terms of your development as a being, a luminous being, based on the decisions that you make, that we make. Now, it's a human frailty, really, that when things go off the rails, we constantly blame other beings, other entities, or other human beings. But this is erroneous. It's always, always, always us. Okay? It's the height of stupidity and the height of cowardice and the height of ignorance. When you want to understand why something happened to you, always, always, always look no further than yourself. The hand of the misfortune may have been another person's, but then you have to ask yourself, how did that person get so close to you? How did they get into a trusted position around you? How did you allow that energy and that intent into your space? Ultimately, it rests with you. So, even if you have negative entities in your field, they're there because of the way you're vibrating in your frequency. And it's calling them in whether you realize it or not. Like a blue light with mosquitoes or moths. Okay? There's no accidents in this creation. This is a perfectly engineered frequency matrix. All notions of victimhood are complete bullshit. All notions of victimhood are complete and utter bullshit. And this includes even the people who go into these programs when they're born. They knew they were going to be going through those programs before they took the life. And many of them, and I've met many of them, have an opportunity to leave at a certain point and they stay voluntarily. You know, you hear these stories about going to the pet store and buying a budgie or a bird of some kind. And then after the bird gets habituated to the cage, if you open the door, the bird won't leave the cage. It's just its new normal now is the cage. And it's the same thing with these consciousness limitation programs or these consciousness augmentation programs, technocratic black magic, controlled dispensation of psychic consciousness through abuse and through trauma. Okay? So everything is on us. If a battle commander decides, for the sake of winning a war, that an entire village needs to be destroyed and all men, women, and children in the village are destroyed, I would not characterize that as evil. I know this might come as a little bit shocking to you, which is how I view reality, and it's a cultivated perspective, an unfolded perspective. I would characterize it as a negative experience on the credit of the battle commander and karmically that battle commander and the soldiers who carried out the order are responsible for the action, and it's been woven into the fabric of time and space, and they will have to meet up with it again. And they will have to balance it out, which means pay karma. And the only way to abate karma is to worship God. That's it. The only way to have it lifted, and if it can be lifted at all, is to worship God, to worship the Creator, to worship, which, if you don't know what that is, start with life. Make life your God. Like every breath you take, gratitude. Thank you for the breath. Thank you for my being. Thank you for my body. Thank you for the opportunity to experience this and to grow. Okay? Because it's always a gift. You may not see it when you're alive. You'll recognize it immediately when you're on the other side. Okay? So anything that can happen in this experience-generating reality is permissible and cannot be considered evil, which is, I think, difficult for a lot of people to accept, right? But it is the truth. And this then leaves us with the single dominant question. What is evil? Okay? If we're going to continue to employ that word at all, and I've discredited it in so many instances already, some of them, the main one I gave, you might even find shocking. What is evil? Okay? So in my definition, evil is the application of ideas or actions or restrictions on a human being or group of human beings that prevent them from growing into a higher consciousness and a higher frequency. And those actions and decisions and systems that are imposed on people are done so knowing that they will restrict human growth by people whose own growth is beyond the normal level of consciousness that forms the social or public consciousness of our society or time. So what I'm saying is, when people who know better deliberately restrict your growth, every human being who wakes up even a little bit, changes their frequency a little bit, changes the whole reality dynamic down here. I mean, I don't know why nobody's told you this. The importance of being good, the importance of being true, the importance of being correct in what you do, the importance of trying to maintain a higher vibration, the importance of unconditionally loving the people around you, even if they fail. Okay? It's important that I love my family here. Are they imperfect? Well, you've heard me go on and on about my brother-in-law, but he's come into my space. I'm the higher consciousness. I'm the wisest person here. I have a duty to cultivate and grow him, not forcefully, but by giving opportunity and shaping or molding the direction of his thinking and feeling when I can in a non-intrusive way. And every human being should behave that way, because every human being who gets even a little bit better makes the whole world a little bit better. They don't want us to understand this. They don't want you to understand this. Because when you understand this, you make every effort, and they don't want that. And they don't want the world being made better. Okay? So the true definition of evil is the deliberate limitation of consciousness and experience on this planet. This last phase we've been in since 1880 has been pure evil. It's all been planned out by magicians. It's all been planned out by technocrats even before the technology was manifest, but it had been seen psychically through ritual. It had been delivered to us theoretically. We only had to manifest it. And this all goes down. The principal technology that is bringing about the digital prison we're living in is money, which I've spoken about so much and which I've written about so much in The Light of Darkness, in The Devil in Us. I've called on my podcast money the greatest weapon ever created. People don't see it. We'd rather watch the UFC and watch two people who train 8 hours a day in a gym try to best each other in a physical competition with no weapons. What sense does that even make? The average person with enough backbone could go to Home Hardware, spend $40 and take out the toughest guy out there from 20 meters away if they knew how to build something. Okay? We don't need to be spending all this time doing push-ups and sit-ups and hitting a punching bag. It's just stupid at this point. But that's the way they want us to think, right? The Joe Rogans, the UFC, the MMA, you know. It's basically the old gladiator, the old Colosseum brought back. It's gladiator school without the death, you know. That's what it is. Nothing really changes down here. It does and it doesn't. It goes from literal to effigy is what it does. And then when it's at the state of effigy, we have the option to dissolve it from the collective consciousness and not manifest it anymore. So what is true evil? Well, true evil is this money system we've been put into. True evil is compound interest applied to individuals and to nations. Okay? That's evil. And it's been around us the whole time. We don't call it evil because they show us other societies that have to line up for shoes and toilet paper, like the Soviet Union in the 70s. And we go, oh, that's evil. They don't have that stuff. But when you look at the effect, when you look at the collective consciousness, specifically of North America now, and Europe is a close second, but specifically North America, when you look at that consciousness now, what do you see? You see a consciousness in which almost everybody who wants to feed themselves and pay a mortgage has to practice evil. They have to psychically, monetarily, or literally cannibalize their fellow human beings. There's no cooperation. It's all a lie. Why would there be any cooperation when the central planning system is meant to govern us in a slave system? Okay? It's not easy to be free. You have to make sacrifices. You have to be able to live a certain way. You have to be in a certain centeredness of yourself and your being. Otherwise, you'll go right back to all the old addictive behavior. The flashes and the bells and the whistles, because the mind gets conditioned, just like the budgie in the cage, like the pet bird in the cage. And you can't get out of that cage after a certain point. And then the people who are higher up the system of diabolical control, the super soldiers, the people with enhanced consciousness due to abuse, the psychically lit up people and spiritually depraved people, they're the new gurus. They're out there telling people how reality works. They don't have a fucking clue, right? They had something put up their ass when they were a kid. That's what's going on with them. And they're permanently crippled, emotionally crippled. Everything they touch turns to shit. They can never have a normal life. Ever. This is the world we live in. And where it's all going now, and where it's all going to break, is where there can be no more denying. I stopped denying what I was seeing around 2002. I made up my mind 23 years ago. This is not accident. This is not an aggregation of human frailty. This is deliberate and this is evil. I made up my mind. I had seen enough by 2002. I was a little bit ahead of the curve. And I have been now watching for 2 decades and 3 or 4 years. I've been watching people slowly wake up. And everybody that wakes up, I go, great. And the longer you wait, the more horrible it is. Okay? Because the period of time you're going to have to digest it all, and you do need time to digest it, because the reality of this world, when seen naked, can induce post-traumatic stress disorder. That's how disturbing it is. So you need time to digest it. Okay? Now, the race now is how many people are going to be able to wake up before the digital lock gets turned and we're locked in. Okay? I don't think it's going to be everywhere in the world. I think for reasons I don't quite understand, they're leaving Central America alone for now. That could change in the future. Nothing is guaranteed. I could be in just as much peril where I've built my home and my life here. I'm not right now, and that's all that matters. And my spiritual direction, my spiritual intuition will probably warn me if it's coming. But I can't really see a whole lot of control coming to where I live. I live with people who still grow most of their food or maintain most of their food. You know, chicken, eggs, chicken, goats, stuff like that. So I don't see how I can necessarily lose it. This is the brave new world, ladies and gentlemen. You'd be amazed how many people around you are consciously a part of it. And you don't even know that they're consciously a part of it. And you'd be less amazed, but still amazed, how many people participate in it when they have a nudging instinct that it's wrong, it's evil. But how do they change? They get you locked in. You're 7, 8 years into home ownership. What are you going to do? You're going to walk away from your equity? You're going to walk away from your mortgage? You're going to walk away from your whole life and go build a stone home in the woods? How many people are going to do that? You're caged birds. Birds in a cage. Okay? And nobody can say, you can't say really that anybody did this to you. Okay? I'm Bruce McDonald, and this has been the Telemancer Review.